Christianity is simultaneously the most hated and most persecuted religion in the world. Hundreds die, and there's not even half the outrage. The world despises and kills us, just as it despised and killed our Lord. John 15:18-21. If the world hate you, ye know that it hated me before it hated you. If you were of the world would love its own. But because ye are not of the world, but I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hateth you. Remember the word that I said unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord. If they have persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they have kept my saying, they will keep yours. But all these things will they do unto you for my name's sake, because they know not him that sent me. Recently, there was a bombing in Sri Lanka on Easter Sunday, a day of worshiping for Christians. There were like 8 blasts. There was a first wave of explosions in Sunday morning masses on several churches. Then there were more explosions in high-end hotels. The first wave of bombings occurred in churches, then hotels, then another couple of locations and a zoo and a garden. The Sri Lankan government found the group that was responsible, which is called National Tawfiq Jamaat. Now keep in mind, I don't know if I pronounced that right, but it is a Muslim extremist group. So for those of you who don't know, Sri Lanka is an island off the eastern coast of India. They have a small Christian minority population. They are about like 10% of the population, but 83% of those Christians are Catholic. So although this is an anti-Christian attack, it's also an anti-Catholic attack perpetrated by Muslims on the holiest day of the Christian calendar on Easter. 207 dead Christians, 207 Catholics killed by Muslims on the holiest day of the year. And Sri Lanka hasn't had even enough coverage by the mainstream media, nor are there any calls to condemn Muslim supremacy. After the New Zealand shooting, the response was literally to shut down the entire internet. Shut down 4chan, shut down 8chan, ban white nationalist content on social media, to the point they held an entire conference with civil rights groups, with Google, Facebook, the entire Congress, the Anti-Defamation League, Black civil rights groups, as I mentioned, Candace Owens, etc. So will there be a conference discussing Christian persecution? Of course not. 50 killed in New Zealand. Now all Western leaders have to show solidarity with the Muslim world. Now let's ban a tiny movement of people, but 207 killed in Sri Lanka and barely any coverage. We had a response from politicians and even the mainstream media calling Christians Easter worshippers instead of just saying Christian. When those Muslims were shot in New Zealand, Hillary Clinton, Obama, etc., including the mainstream media, had no problem saying Muslims. And don't let them fool you and think you're upset over nothing. Remember that mainstream and radical leftists hold a premise where you must name the victim and the perpetrator at the same time, otherwise you're legitimizing the perpetrator's ideology and views. So if they are afraid of saying Christian and refer to them as Easter worshippers and claim that this wasn't a single-sided attack, why didn't they do the same for Muslims? So the most persecuted religious group gets the least sympathy. During a world watch list, an average of 4,136 Christians were killed for faith-related reasons. 2,625 Christians were detained without trial, arrested, sentenced, imprisoned, and 1,268 churches or Christian places of worship were attacked, and I'm sure those numbers are rising. Not to mention, when anti-Christian terrorist attacks occur, their response is to blame the victims. A left-wing journalist by the name of Adam West blamed Western missionaries after Islamic terrorist attacks in Sri Lanka, Adam West wrote a tweet that said, "There is no excuse for terror attacks against innocent people. But as a journalist, I saw Western Christian missionaries unscrupulously converting Buddhist orphans for food and shelter after an Asian tsunami. Don't send your prayers. Hashtag Sri Lanka blasts." Now keep in mind what happens in Sri Lanka happens on a daily basis in many different countries. I've heard countless stories out of Egypt, Coptic Christians being killed and having their churches burned down by Muslim extremists, including many Coptic priests killed. I've heard many stories in Afghanistan where Christian converts are killed or put in mental institutions if they do not return to their Islamic faith. In Somalia, Christians are literally just killed right on the spot. In Sudan, the government regularly arrests and intimidates Christian leaders. And in Nigeria, lots of Christians were also killed by Muslim extremists, like hundreds of them. Again, the list of how many Christians are persecuted in the Islamic world is ridiculously high. Besides the Islamic world, there are Christians being arrested, killed, tortured in other countries as well. Communist China persecutes Christians as well. Christianity is the fastest growing religion as of now in China, and currently the Chinese government has been trying to crack down on Christian churches, both Protestant and Catholic, removing the Bible and arresting Christian pastors, priests, and Christian people. And there's hardly any coverage, outrage, or any ounce of sympathy. People make excuses and outright justify it. In the Western world, the establishment has a disdain for Christianity to the point that Marilyn Manson could get on MTV and eat a Bible. Comedian Sarah Silverman once said, "I hope the Jews did kill Christ. I'd do it again in a second." Sarah Silverman is an absolute darling of the Democratic Party in the U.S. who spoke in the 2016 DNC. Now imagine if somebody proclaimed to have wanted to kill Muhammad, the prophet. Even if they were joking, that person would not be embraced by the establishment. In fact, they would be socially shamed, deplatformed, and forced to issue an apology, and we know they wouldn't be speaking in the American DNC. They blasphemed Jesus Christ in Jerry Springer the Opera, where they made Jesus look like a gay guy. Jesus is portrayed as a nappy-haired pervert, and God the Father is portrayed as a bumbling inadequate. Jerry Springer then tells Jesus to grow up and put some clothes on. Certain rock bands have made a habit of tearing up the Bible as part of their to show their disdain for Christianity. But if a rock band teared up a Talmud or a Quran, no venue will ever allow them into the door ever again. And before any leftist accuses this of conspiracy, it is not, unfortunately. The Eagles of Death March, a death metal band, they were playing at the Bataclan Theater in Paris when Muslim terrorists stormed over the venue and murdered over 129 people. And so the lead singer said something critical of Islam after witnessing that terror attack. The band was barred from playing any festival in France. People have written plays of Jesus and Satan being a gay couple. And there's also another thing. Gay couples go to bakeries and are very selective about choosing them. They would go into many different bakeries, and when that bakery says their offer of baking them a gay wedding cake, they go, "No, never mind," and they just walk away and go to the next one until they find a bakery that refuses to bake them a gay wedding cake, as it contradicts their Christian faith. This happened in Portland. How did this particular gay or lesbian couple find a Christian bakery in the third gayest city in America? You had to have been very selective at that point. But they do it because they generally hate Christians, and they also gain a lot of money from suing Christian bakeries. So far, they have made Christians a target for bullying, but the persecution will probably start much, much later. They are in the bullying and dehumanizing process. When the time comes, they will try to persecute us. But you know what? When they persecute Christians, it makes us stronger. It makes us grow as more people continue to see evil in the world. They will turn to Christ. which is why Christianity is strong in the East, and it's starting to grow and come back strong in the West. Before I end this, I will end with the same Bible verse that I started with. John 15:18-21. If the world hate you, ye know that it hated me before it hated you. If ye were of the world would love his own. But because ye are not of the world, but I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hateth you. Remember the word I said unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord. If they have persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they have kept my saying, they will keep yours also. But all these things will they do unto you, for my name's sake, because they know not him that sent me.